The secret reason why Pokemon games aren't as good as they could be has been discovered. And no, it's got nothing to do with frame rates, animations, or, well, it has a little bit to do with animations. It's something sneaky that I've never seen anyone talk about until now. All right, we're gonna learn how to fix Pokemon proper.
I watch a lot of sports, real and fake. I like big crowds, big competition, big moments, and to hear this sound as often as I possibly can.
Pog!
But Daryl, what is this?
Chat, this is what I imagine you sound like when I pull off a really sick play in a Nuzlocke and it's really Pog and everyone's typing PogChamp in chat. That's what I imagine you sound like.
With Pokemon. Alright then, let's talk Pokemon. Did you know that in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, when you use an attack like Bullet Seed that will land anywhere from 2 to 5 times, it goes like this. The attack animation plays. We wait to see if it'll go again. Attack, wait, attack, wait.
Are you not entertained?
Attack, wait. In Pokemon Stadium, if you use an attack like this, it goes.
What's that?
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Yeah!
It looks like a doofy cartoon, doesn't it? It looks like a Roadrunner kind of situation with Wile E. Coyote throwing some bombs at it.
But Daryl, what does this have to do with sports? Well, you see, sports on TV are fun as hell. Much like Pokemon battles as a child growing up.
The clip that he used while he said they're fun as hell is a guy reading a book on a stand.
Sports as a grown-up are fast, hard-hitting, brutal, elegant. Passes in football scream through the air until they snap into place in a receiver's hands as they bring it down for a completion. Thundershocks in Coliseum pelted the target. Basketball players seem to take gravity as simply a suggestion when they find an opening for a slam dunk. Hyper Beam on the silver screen looked genuinely dangerous. Baseball was
It's a bit boring.
Boring for like 95% of the game, but when it goes,
Yeah, baseball, cricket, I'd even say like football is a bit boring to watch, but I'm not a fan. I'm not the target audience of that, right?
it goes. And what I've noticed over the years, having seen almost every sport I love on TV, as well as live in person,
Dude, wrestling is
that it
impressive.
feels sluggish in person. Don't get me wrong, it's exciting to be there. The atmosphere of a big ball game surrounded by raving fans is a blast, but somehow most of that intensity dissipates. It slows down. It seems like the players are moving through water. Visually, it's undercooked.
I'm gonna have to take his word for it because I've never been to any kind of sporting event whatsoever. I'm not the kind of person that goes to a sporting event, but I'll agree. In person, you don't get the cool camera angles. You don't get the cuts. You don't get the zooms. You don't get the announcer. The whoa! Actually, you probably get the announcer. You probably still
And
get
that's
that.
not just a product of having bad
Wrestling is scripted. Yeah, it doesn't matter if wrestling is scripted. They're still doing backflips off the top rope. You can't script not being injured by a backflip or a choke slam. Like, you still have to do it. You still have to be incredibly athletic. Listen, I am not a wrestling defender. I am not a wrestling stan, but whenever I watch wrestling, I'm like, damn, these are athletes at the top of their level. These are actors that are at the top of their game. They are so incredibly impressive, more so than I think any other athletes are. They're amazing.
seats, by the way. I've sat close to the field, I've sat nosebleeds, I've sat ringside, and I've sat in the parking lot and watched on my phone, and somehow the action felt faster and stronger from the parking lot. And oddly,
Because you get the reaction shots. Look at that.
sluggish perception is the exact sensation I have gotten from pretty much all of the recent 3D Pokemon installments, Arceus and Scarlet Violet especially. I'll give you an example that I think really sums it up nicely. Watch this bite attack from Pokemon Coliseum.
All right, here we go. Goated soundtrack, by the way. Nice. There you go, flips him back.
Now watch this bite from Scarlet.
Okay. Yeah, you see the camera difference? You don't get the camera, you don't get much of a reaction from the Pokemon. You don't get the Pokemon launching into action. You're seeing like a back shot. There's no change, there's no zooms, there's nothing. There's nothing going
Now,
on.
before you immediately point the finger at the difference in character animations, I'm gonna do something else. Let me add this box so that you can't see the Pokemon, and
Okay.
I'll replay each. Here
Okay.
is Scarlet.
Yeah, it's
and here is
exactly the same.
Coliseum.
Oh, there's so much more movement. You can already tell there's
If I do
so
the
much more
same
movement.
for this spot from an AEW show last year, you might
Oh my
notice
God.
something similar. Even if you completely miss the action, one clip still seems to draw the eye a bit more.
Which one is it?
Yes, the Pokemon animations have not evolved well with the years, unfortunately. Long gone are the days where Honchkrow would tip his hat to you for defeating him. We are desperate.
Oh no, Honchkrow's an incel. Tips my hat, my lady.
Far removed from Alakazam getting hit, then psychically walking himself back forward with his fingers while he lounged midair. The internet
that's
has
so cool.
thoroughly lamented Game Freak's fumbling of Pokemon animations, but I am not here to add to that pool of tears. Instead,
okay, good. We're gonna hear something new.
Take you on a long walk on the beach. Maybe pick up some seashells, watch the sunrise, and talk your ear off about camera work.
I'm gonna get wined and dined.
Why this feels slow, but this feels intense. Why this hits hard, and why this doesn't.
Camera operators are very underrated.
Animations. We'll look at other turn-based battle systems, sports, cinema, cinematic, sport, sweaty men, and hopefully, by the time it's all said and done,
sweaty men.
we'll have some practical advice for Game Freak and other developers that want to make a turn-based battle system that plays more fluid and hard-hitting than maybe it actually is. After all, the exact same thing is happening on this field and this field. It's no accident that one is much more.
But one looks so much like, yeah, it looks way cooler. All right. Oh, his editing is really good too. I love this video so far. It's really good.
These two gentlemen are having a bit of a disagreement in the kitchen, as you do, so they are working through it. And what I love about this scene is that, like most great fights in cinema, every impact is palpable. The camera follows the assassin's leg as Rama catches
That's a little bit of
Rama,
shaky
stays
cam.
with it as it makes its way to the right, pans up as the assassin grabs Rama by the throat, cuts to a new angle, and follows Rama getting chokeslammed onto the table. You see it and go, God damn! His counter was countered.
Oh, it follows the
and our
action so
eyes were
well.
directed to exactly what was important. And the camera does a lot of this throughout this scene. It follows as the assassin is swung around, whip pans to sell the impact of the knee, tilts to a Dutch angle to match his skull getting slammed into the surface, and
nice!
pulls back at the same speed his face is pushed along the counter. The camera follows the bottle smashing into his dome, and then we're off to the races.
Camera's following things is just such an easy cheat code for making things look cool. They do it so much in John Wick as well. The action in John Wick is spectacular. Mwah. There's no shaky cam. You can see everything that's happening, but they cut it in such good ways where it's always exciting. It's awesome.
What you notice in all of these shots, and in fact a lot of shots in fight scenes, is that the camera is locked onto exactly what's moving in order to double down on the cessation of motion, whether that motion is jarring,
I've never realized that before.
smooth, or disorienting.
Oh, I hate that.
Instead of the fight taking place in one still perspective, by following the movement, the camera can add
Jake Paul just
impact to
one-shot
whatever
someone?
action is being filmed. Not all action needs that help, but it does help. This is something that Hollywood action designer Young Lee, who has worked on these films, is a big fan of.
Wait, which ones? Okay, Solo, Shang-Chi. Okay, Shang-Chi's good. The Kingsman, haven't seen that. The Kingsman, I haven't seen that either, but I've heard that they're pretty fun though, right? It's like kind of parody James Bond. Apparently the Solo movie, actually no, I have seen the Solo movie. I have seen it. Shang-Chi's great though.
Seminar with Garrett Brown, the creator of the Steadicam. His big thing was always follow the action. If the subject is moving, you're moving.
he's smart.
If the subject stops, you stop. I take that principle a lot in the camera movement. So if I see you know, a hook is coming this way, so the camera's gonna Dutch a little that way, and when it stops, when you do the block, camera stops.
And this principle of following the action is what takes
okay.
from feeling like this to feeling like this. It's a subtle thing that communicates a true sense of speed and fluidity to actions, and it's why there are so many moments where battles in Pokemon nowadays just look
Oh man, don't come back to this. It's embarrassing.
muted.
Don't you
If we
feel
go
like
back to
this
the
is
fight
intense?
example, in Scarlet, we have a single
I don't know, man. When was the last time you thought a Pokemon battle was intense? At least they do pan the camera around a little bit. To be like devil's advocate, they do like kind of pan their camera around, but they don't during the actual attacks. They'll play attack animations, and if there is some kind of camera pan associated with the attack animation, then it will play. But while it's static, while you're selecting your move, that's when they pan around. But as soon as you select a move, it's muted. It's like stand still. It's just watch what is happening between the two characters in front of you. I guess it's harder to do this kind of thing when you're in an open world because there's so many things that could go wrong. Your camera's probably going to clip onto the ground a lot, but I see what you're saying.
Static shot. Gabite moves, animated teeth appear in front of Watchroll. Watchroll reacts to the blow, attack done. The camera sits still in this over-the-shoulder perspective, reminiscent of the old Game Boy bouts.
The thing is, it is fine when they did it back then because a sprite versus a sprite, it was old. There wasn't really a whole lot you could do. It's acceptable. It looked fine. But the more that Pokemon advances and the bigger the games get and the better the graphics get and the better everything gets and the bigger and more credible the animations are, it just looks weird to have two creatures standing, staring at each other, doing nothing, just staring each other down, just waiting for an attack to hit them from a character that is 15 feet away that launched a punch, but they launched it from too far away, so you just feel this ghostly aura hitting them instead of an actual punch instead.
The reason the Colosseum attack feels much more alive is because the camera follows the action like my dogs follow the ball. You get a shot of Umbreon that dollies out as we read that it uses Bite. The camera tracks as Umbreon runs up, cuts to Zigzagoon just as the attack is about to land, shakes upon impact, and whip hands as the target falls back.
These games are so good. I will absolutely stand by anyone that is complimenting these games. I feel like more people need to play them. They are fantastic.
So much more happens here before you even get to the animations. And the same was the case in Stadium. We go from the attack animation shot, then cut to the Pokemon being hit with a healthy dose of screen shake, or the camera whipping back in response to the attack's velocity. If you've ever watched an action flick or a pro wrestling match, you've almost certainly seen the camera cut right as someone is getting punched, or kicked, or power bombed to make the blow feel more jarring than it actually is.
Dude, you see that flip? That was insane!
What Genius Sonority and Nintendo EAD liked to do with these old console stadium style games. Now it's worth noting that Scarlet and Violet, as well as a lot of the 3D Game Freak Pokemon games, do in fact do this for some attacks and even take it a step further and
yeah, like I mentioned before,
whip hands to add to the impact. Like here's
that stuff's nice.
Playthrough where the camera zooms in for this Aqua Tail, backs out, and then pans around to follow the play rough landing. It watches like an actual exchange in a fight. But for some reason, we only get that for some attacks, while several others are left to just play out on that original static over-the-shoulder shot. They kind of cleverly—
you know why? It's because they have so many goddamn moves. It's like there are hundreds of moves, there are hundreds of Pokemon, there are hundreds of different interactions that could happen. They just don't have the time to make it look good. They have to release a game every 10 months, guys. Come on.
Around this in Arceus because you control the camera, which means you watch the battle from whatever angle you want.
I love that you could walk around
you
in
film
this.
It then, asshole. But it works here and in Scarlet Violet for the open world aspects of both games. During battle, you can maybe peep over and see what other Pokemon are around, check if you have any livestock, buying tickets to watch the show. Maybe you catch a glimpse of a shiny just across the way, maybe you panic and forget to save before you start the battle and it just fucking explodes. Yes, you could—
Wow, that feels like a long hidden trauma that was just brought back up again. He even recorded it too.
Look around and play Pokemon in first person if you really want to, but with this freedom, you don't get the kind of intentional camera work that really sells the action the way it's meant to be felt. Game Freak's philosophy seems to be to only pull out the fancy cinematography on big attacks, whereas in Stadium and XD, even the debuffs and poison damage deserved their own shot.
Oh, damn.
Pokemon Colosseum has been my favorite battle system in the franchise for years, but until I started researching for this video, I didn't fully understand why. One of those reasons is because the camera work in Colosseum's battles is ridiculously active. When Pokemon enter the arena, attack, get hit by an attack, or are knocked out, the camera is locked onto their most mobile point, which means instead of a static shot or simply screen shake when they get hit, any amount they are knocked back is communicated not only in their actual movement, but how the camera follows that movement.
Dude, there's so much that you could do with this as well, with the camera, with the way that Pokemon react to certain hits. If it's a super effective hit, you have it fly back more, you have a special animation. If it's not very effective, you have them kind of stand tall, stand strong because they take the hit better because it's resisted. If it's normal, somewhere in between. If it's resisted, you could even have some kind of like, ha ha ha, you thought you could harm me kind of thing, where it's like, I don't care, I don't take any damage from this, kind of like high up attitude. You could have the animations related to the attitudes of the Pokemon. You can have the camera change depending on how the attack is being hit. If it's doing a lot of damage, then you add more shake. If it's doing less damage, then there's less shake and you maybe pan out to show that it's not doing a lot. Like, there's so much you could do here.
Slammed here, the camera whips back with it. When Golem comes out, the camera is so sensitive that during his idle animation, as he sort of stands at the ready, you can almost feel him inhaling and snorting like an actual wild animal would. You see the camera move with the animations and you're like, I think I smell that Pokemon right now. It takes what would ordinarily
Golem
just
smell
be a
like?
character model and adds a bit of life to it. And as an aside, screen shake is something we've all seen, right? Black and White used it to communicate the weight of a Pokemon landing. Lots of turn-based battle systems use it on impact. But what I find even more impressive is how the tracking camera in Colosseum is a little bit more dynamic than that. It tells you not only how powerful the attack that landed was, but also a lot about the Pokemon that is being hit. Metang is airborne, untethered. When it's hit, it tries to resist but then goes flying and recoil, and so do we.
Dude, I love Metang's hit so much. It's so robotic. It's perfect for it. Oh, it's so good. Man, I wish they did more stuff that was related to the actual Pokemon in these games. I bet if they had more time, they would love to do stuff like this.
Takes a blow, he's sturdy. The camera just buckles as he does. And although I don't think it did it as well, Stadium did this too. Watch how the camera sways to follow this goofy Jigglypuff knockout animation.
You goober. Bro, he pops like a balloon. He pops like a goddamn balloon, man.
I realize it's tough for Pokemon nowadays to really take advantage of this lock-on camera philosophy because the character model animations aren't as, well, animated as they once were, but there's still a lot.
Dude, don't show me double kick ever again.
For example, the Game Freak camera shot since the beginning of the 3D era for a knockout has been to give a simple pan around upon knockout.
Yeah, it's the same. Oh, wow, it's the same pan. Oh, yeah, it's just the, yeah, there's the pan. There's the dab. They love this pad. Wow. Oh, it's the same one.
They could always take a page out of the Final Fantasy VII playbook and simply have a different camera pan depending on the Pokemon. Depending on what enemy you run into in 7, the camera will swing in and settle wherever best complements the situation.
That makes sense because it's like a massive dragon, so you have to come in from further away.
You're surrounded.
And it's kind of imposing. Oh, that's cool.
If the enemy is big, if the enemy is small, if the enemy is enemies. Adding some variety to the knockout composition and going with something other than this exact pan every time would really go a long way in masking the monotony of the battle and disguise some of the flat animations.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fall asleep during half the battles. There's nothing like visually new. I mean, I know I've played the game a lot. I've played the game a ton, and I replay the games a lot too, but I usually just find myself looking away and not really paying attention because I already know what's gonna happen. Maybe if there was some kind of like randomness to it, where different camera pans, different animations could play, or different zooms, different shakes, different effects, different death animations, different zooms on those death animations. If there was always like a bit of randomness to it, it would keep you visually interested, right?
Could be said for when Pokemon enter the field. You could tell that in X and Y they were really trying with the start of battle. We get a pan around the trainer to reveal the battlefield as they're throwing the ball for a really nice shot. The screen shakes as the Pokemon pops in, and then we get an old westerny snap zoom to the Pokemon's face. I likes that. In Omega Ruby, we get a callback to Black and White where the screen shakes when the Pokemon hits the ground to sell their weight. The camera does the same thing when I step on the scale in the morning. Then, they kind of...
They could bring the announcer back. That's actually a good idea. If they brought the announcer back for like gym battles, that would be sick. Massive damage from Stadium. Oh, that would actually be cool. If they brought that back for... Oh, but that would include voice acting though. Uh-oh, no contact voice acting.
In Sun and Moon, they drop the screen shake. In Sword and Shield, there is no fun zoom. In Arceus, you get neither. Scarlet Violet doesn't do much there either. When it comes to entering the field, I would love to see Game Freak take the extra step and bring the screen shake and zooms back, at least in some capacity. And if they give all of the attacks the same treatment they give the big attacks, then we would be cooking with fire. Go ahead and give poison damage and recoil and buffs and debuffs their own shots as well. A counter argument might be that if you do that, then the big attacks don't feel as big by comparison. I don't fully agree, but I see your point. Another piece that I think we've been...
Well, you can solve that by just making the big attacks even bigger. Just add a little bit more or make it a different animation. There's ways to make big attacks feel like they're doing a lot of damage.
Ignoring a bit is that not just Pokemon, but most turn-based RPG battle systems are split into 2 phases. The point where the attack animations are played, and the point where you are navigating a menu deciding what to do next. Some time-based battle systems overlap these 2 phases, choices, but to keep in line with Pokemon's design, let's stick with true turn-based camera work. Game Freak's biggest flaw in battles lies here, in my opinion.
Because they are just looking at each other. They just look at each other for ages. And actually the camera does pan around. Like you do get zooms on things, you get zooms on the trainers, and that's good. But I feel like there's so much more that you could do with this, right?
On this static, over-the-shoulder shot. Like we said, it's a callback and that warms our hearts, but it has a few issues. For starters, if you watch a ton of battles, and I actually mean proper gym battles in Scarlet Violet where you don't control the camera like in Arceus, you'll find that this is the shot Game Freak likes to default to the most anytime anything is about to happen. Select a move, return here. Attacks finish, return here. Gym leader talks, return here real quick, go to B-roll. Ayano is about to send out a new Pokemon, let's read it.
At least we have B-roll.
The same goes for pretty much every 3D Game Freak Pokemon. It's sort of their loading screen disguise for battles, their crawl between the cracks in big AAA titles.
I didn't realize that that was actually disguising a loading screen until like last week. You know those crawling between the crack things where you do it in these open world games and you crawl between a crack and then you come out the other side? It's just a loading screen. That's what those are. They're just loading screens. I had no idea that was the case until recently. Those sneaky little bitches. They've been hiding that from me the entire time.
A lot of time is spent here in this static shot. If they must
I was wondering why so many games use
one
it.
subtle thing that they could do is take a page out of Octopath Traveler's book. You see, in Octopath, most of your time in battles take place here as you select what to do next, but somehow it feels much more natural by comparison, and I think that's because it's not truly a static shot. If you hit it with the black box from earlier and compare, you'll notice that the camera is sort of handheld. It's flowing, it's moving, it's vibing, it's breathing with the pace of the battle. Yes, there are dollies in and slow down to accentuate the animations, but a great majority of your time is spent here as you decide how to use your turns. And because it's not completely still, it's a lot less like characters are just standing around waiting to attack in an RPG. Another way to prevent the—
I don't know, it kind of still feels like you're standing around waiting to attack. I would argue that Pokemon actually does have a little bit of an advantage there because it does have the B-roll where it like zooms in on faces, it zooms in on your trainer, it'll pan around the battlefield. Like it does have a little bit more going on than I think Octopath Traveler does.
The whole standing around thing is to have your characters dance between turns like in Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. This has nothing to do with cameras, it just makes me smile. I believe Library of Ruina and Shin Megami Tensei do the handheld active camera as well, and it adds a level of urgency that you miss out on when you're just sitting in one spot. Don't get me wrong, static shots in film have their place in action as well. Like there's this one in John Wick where you don't actually see all of the fight because it's filmed in the hallway of this library.
John Wick is the peak of action. I'm just going to say it. John Wick, I love every single one of their movies. They are fantastic. The action is always sublime. There's no shaky cam. Keanu Reeves is out there doing his own stunts. Everything looks good. You can tell the impacts that everything is happening, that everything is having on the fighters. Everything looks realistic. I don't know. It's just the absolute
When
peak
you watch,
of action.
Kind of become a bystander and it's almost comedic, but in the very same scene, we get another mostly still shot from the floor that does have just enough handheld movement to complement the brutality of this fight. In a nutshell, the camera sitting still for a long period of time is the enemy when you're trying to portray heart-throbbing action, which is why a static shot like this—
Dude, I wish something would happen when Pokemon miss. I hate this. It just flies and it's like, this misses. And you're like, oh God, I have to wait for the other animation to play now. And end turn animations. Don't get me started on end turn animations. If you are poisoned, leech seeded, and have all these different status effects on you, and you got leftovers, buddy, if you got leftovers, you're gonna be sitting there for 5 minutes just watching things play out. Why can't we have things play out maybe at the same time, or maybe you're just a bit faster? Can we have like a little bit of a speed up button to get through this a little bit faster, please?
Must be there for Game Freak to load between attacks could be greatly dressed up with a little bit of an active camera that dances with the ferocity of the battle as opposed to being sat on a tripod in the corner. And again, Game Freak haven't completely shit the bed. While you are selecting your attack, there is a B-roll that plays to vary up what you're looking at and add a bit of—
Yeah, so I mentioned, yeah, exactly.
Close-ups of the trainers, the Pokemon, pans over the battlefield, wide shots to add some scale like you sometimes get in sports. I'm
interested to see like what he thinks about this as well. And I get what he's saying. He's saying that the static tripod shot that you see for the majority of the battle is pretty boring, and there's a little bit of something you could do with that just to make it a bit more visually interesting. But there is the the B-roll at the very
With
least.
these wides in Sword and Shield, it made the battles feel grand in scale before you even Dynamaxed, which I still
Good.
contend should
Okay,
be
I'm
called
glad he likes
Kaiju
that,
morphing.
Limbius.
The reason Sword and Shield had these giant wides, by the way, was to establish space for the giant mons before they came out. Or at least that's why I think they were there. Establishing space is really important in cinematography. This cut we talked about earlier wouldn't make sense without this overhead pan in between every turn. It shows you the space the Pokemon are traveling through. Having seen this, our minds can fill in the blanks of what happened between here and here. It's why Stadiums 1 and 2 started each turn like this, and why some attacks in this over-the-shoulder perspective are kind of awkward without a
Oh yeah, everything standing on the top of a car is just hilarious. Do you think they come down from the top of the car to hit you and then they scramble back up and they're like, no, wait, don't attack yet, I'm not in the car yet. And then they get on the car and just, okay, you can attack now, I'm ready, I'm on the car now, you can attack. Ah,
The
Jesus
space
Christ!
in between is unused. There's just a sudden bear trap on the other side. Sure, with beams or projectiles it's fine, but not every attack is long.
I know how we fix this. There you go. See? The useless part of the screen is now being filled with something visually interesting. So Game Freak, if you want to just like wire me $50 million, this should increase your profits by, I would probably 500%, I would imagine. So you can hit my DMs or Instagram or my business email. Just let me know.
Range. It's equally important that if space is established, that it's for a purpose. Remember that big force push moment in Revenge of the Sith? Well, before we get to that and this sequence comes to an end, we cut
That's
wide
awesome.
to show how big the room is first, then cut really close to sell this dire struggle between two former friends, so that when they go flying, it's not too jarring or confusing. We know where they are, we know why we were just shown this wide shot of the room, and we understand the consequence of them being blown
They just
back.
launch each
This
other.
is what the menu
The Force
B-roll
is so
does for
goofy.
Pokemon, and specifically what the super wide shot does for Dyna and Gigantamaxing. As a viewer, if you show me the space, it tells me that it will have a purpose, which is
It's
why I think
Chekhov's
this really
space.
wide perspective is only in Sword and Shield. Fans, flying space wizards, giant Pokemon, everything on camera should be intentional.
Oh, that's why it looks really weird in Scarlet and Violet, because you have these big wide open spaces and you have these really hype battles, but then you have 15 people max. Actually, not even that. You have like 10 people surrounded like, yeah, woo, let's go. And majority of the time you have the two exact same Granny watching you have a battle. In online matches, you get two of the same skin of Granny. They're wearing the same clothes. And there's only like 6 people watching the fight. They could just make a new dress for them.
Speaking of intention, one thing I love that Atlas games do is shift the camera depending on what you are selecting. In SMT5, when you toggle between enemies to decide whom to attack, the camera snaps to them such that they are centered in the shot. The same goes for Tokyo Mirage sessions, which also adjust the camera based on where you are in the menu. It starts up close as you select what action you'll take, whip pans around once you've opened the skills menu, then pulls back wide and snaps to which target you like to hit once you've decided on an attack. The menu is made exciting this way. It's much more fitting with the pace of battle that we imagine these fights to be, and deciding what to do invites you to be an active part of the process that's involved with the action, rather than just an auxiliary necessity while your party stands around mid-fight. Of course, some of this doesn't work when it's a 1v1 Pokemon battle and there's only one target, but it just goes to show that if you want to, you can get a little more creative.
Damn, who is she?
When you
Holy.
take the dynamic menus, the snap zooms, the shots to establish space, the screen shake, the tracking cams, the whip pans, the active shot, and put it all together, you can
You get
see
something
how powerful
special.
a tool camera work can be in any generation. It's the
We need to
reason
hire a
game like
cameraman for our
Gaku
games.
Profile from 1999 feels somehow way more free-flowing than
Oh boy! I started playing this, I couldn't get through it. I don't know, I just got bored. I don't think I'm into JRPGs. I really tried to get into JRPGs, I don't think I like them.
this feels like a low blow. Okay, allow me to reel this fish back in a bit. We need some balance.
It's a counter-argument
I saw a post
fish.
on Reddit back in 2020 that I think best illustrates that throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks just makes a mess. What this gentleman does is find a random week of pro wrestling, find a random match from each show that week, and on a random minute in each match, count up how many times the director cuts to a new angle. Like we said earlier, cuts are good for selling impact, and since pro wrestling is more of a violent storytelling dance than a real fight, cuts are used to sell the moves.
Yeah, because you know that they're not really trying to hurt each other that much, but the more zooming and cutting and shaking you do with the camera, the more you can kind of hide that. That's how they hide it in action films too. The more you cut, the more you do shaky cam, you can kind of hide the fact that someone's not really getting hit, they're not really getting injured, and it just looks like they are because you mask it really well with some good cinematography.
He makes the point that WWE stuff, especially Monday Night Raw, gives him headaches because there are just far too many cuts. It's jarring. Tony makes the point that a lot of Jackie's fights work because there aren't too many cuts. By staying with one static shot, it allows the rhythm of the fight to unfold and the choreography itself to stand out.
It's so much harder to do choreography like that, though. It means you have to get everything absolutely spot on without hurting each other. It's so much harder to do that. That's why they use those shaky cams, the cut cams so much. Because if you cut, then you can just redo the same thing like 7 times. But if you have to do one long shot, you have to get it right in the one long shot, which is way, way, way more difficult.
Chopping and slamming fights up like this, you tarnish what might otherwise be impressive to the naked eye. Cuts definitely have their place, as do zooms and whip pans, but sometimes the action itself is enough. Probably the best example of this is the Old Boy hallway fight. If you haven't seen it, it's tremendous, and it all takes place in one.
I've heard this movie
shot.
is so
no
good.
Cuts, no zooms, no screen shake, just a dolly to track the action, and it allows the viewer a chance to soak up everything on screen as it happens.
There was a really good one-shot scene in, I think it was Daredevil, where he fights downstairs, and it was all in one shot. It's like a 5-minute scene all in one shot where he fights like 50 people as he walks downstairs. It's insane. I can't imagine how hard that would be to actually execute, though.
Every detail, every swing, every kick, every stab, every tear, every grasp, it's a buffet for the pupils, a moving museum piece. It's plenty for you to take in all at once without the need to trick the eye with overwhelming camera work. Simply a genuinely raw and gritty experience.
Tinkle Tackle! This is such a goofy attack. I think this is supposed to be goofy, though.
Pokemon, however, does not have this level of choreography. So
Okay.
we need to dress things up a little bit.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I get
If
it.
you're wanting to make a captivating turn-based battle system, or our Game Freak, is to strike a balance between throwing out so much fancy camera work that it's jarring to the eye, and barely using it at all. What you want is to use everything we've talked about today intentionally to dress up where animations fail. You want to stitch the battle and the player's decisions during that battle together such that every turn and every action flows and crashes just like an actual showdown would. And when you do it right, when you bring all of these ingredients together harmoniously,
Oh, God, here it comes.
Persona 5.
Here it
Boom, pull out
comes.
the mask, cut wide to establish space. Enemies pop out, we see them all. Tiny screen shake as they each materialize. Camera pulls back more as the squad circus olays onto the battlefield. Persona, what we doing? Camera pans back as you crack open the menu. Wait a minute, order, let's think about it. Camera pans back. Nah, I'm good. Camera moseys back in. What if I pull out the blicky? Camera goes all western, over the shoulder perspective, enemy down the barrel. Which one's catching the slug? Wait a minute, let's get them all in one go. Persona, select them all. Camera pans up. Here it comes, baby. Hit him with that screen shake. This is what I really sound like when I play this game. By the way, up until now...
Dude, that was a really good shot right there. I mean, he commentated that and narrated that so well. I wish I liked Persona. I started playing Persona, I couldn't get into it, but the battles do look nice. Like, I will say that. It wasn't the fact that the battles didn't look nice that got me to stop playing it. The battles look fantastic.
Continuous shot. No static cam, no cuts. Persona 5's battle system is oozing with style, but everyone always points to the menus, the animations, and the music, not realizing the camera is the unsung hero, the offensive line, shooting little fireworks through your visual cortex. We're talking several characters and enemies on screen at once.
Pokemon is usually 1v1
match, so maybe the real solution is to give us some more double battles, or even bring back
Yes! Oh my god, please! Yes, we need more games that are double battles. Double battles are infinitely more entertaining than single battles. I know that more complicated, it's more for our little tiny brains, especially my tiny brain, to handle, but it's more strategic that way. There's more danger. Rather than I'm going to throw something in and use the super effective button, you can't just click the A button because there's something on the other side that might stop you from clicking the A button or might punish you for clicking the A button instead. That's why XD, Gale of Darkness are the absolute goats. We need more games like that. Please, come on, let's do it. Let's do it, baby.
From black and white. And I get that
He's spitting facts.
exploration is this generation's wet dream for pretty much every AAA game franchise, but along the way, Game Freak, let's not neglect one of the most integral parts of the experience. Pokemon battles can be leaps and bounds more visually stunning than they are now before you
He's right.
touch the animations or the other issues.
He's right.
Anyways, I hope that this video was
I'm convinced. He sold me. He's absolutely sold me on that. I think that in order to save this franchise, we make the camera look absolutely sick. Make sure that you subscribe to Daryl because they did an absolutely fantastic job making this. And if you want me to react to any video in specific, then post it in my sub Discord server.